Welcome to Off the Hook, a podcast that hacks up the Texas Chainsaw Massacre into bite-sized pieces. Each episode, we'll explore the darkest nightmare ever committed to celluloid by looking at the film in 74-second slices in an ode to the year of its release. I'm Rebecca McCallum, a writer, podcaster and speaker, and the creator and host of Talking Hitchcock, a podcast that explores the work and the world of my favourite director. I also love the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
I'm Mike Snoonian, the creator and one of the co-hosts of The Pod and the Pendulum, a show that covers all the horror movie franchises. I've also co-hosted Psychoanalysis, a horror therapy podcast, and I am also a massive fan of Tobe Hooper's The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So this iconic film turns 50, and we have to put on the biggest birthday party possible. It's what we could do to celebrate this film's beauty, its endurance, and its legacy.
As we battle the Texas heat, avoid hitchhikers, and decline any offers of barbecue, we'll be joined by special guests along the way to share their experiences with the film and their unique insights.
So right now you can find Off the Hook at Twitter at OffTheHookPod74, at Instagram at OffTheHookPodcast74, and very soon you'll be able to listen to us at all the usual places like Apple and Spotify. So spread the love, spread the law of the saw by subscribing, following, and telling a friend all about us.
Join us if you dare on this journey of a lifetime as we hack apart every mad and macabre second of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's gonna be a fun trip.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Pod and the Pendulum. Typically, we are the show that covers all of the franchises, one movie and one episode at a time. But this week, we are doing something a little different. This is Mike, your host, and I'm doing some miniature episodes throughout the week that highlights some of the Fantasia Film Festival coverage that we were able to do. Doing miniature reviews of some of the highlights, some of the better movies we caught at the 28th Gathering of Fantasia. This is the second episode, second of which should be three. Who knows? We'll see how it goes. And you can go back and listen to part one right now. It's just one episode away. And for those that don't know, or if you didn't listen to part one and you're like, what is Fantasia? Well, I'm glad you asked. Fantasia is an absolutely fantastic film festival taking place in the heart of Montreal, Quebec, right at Concordia University every summer. Runs for almost 3 weeks. And they have like a huge international spotlight where they do not just horror movies, but science fiction and action movies and fantasy films and some really dark comedy movies as well. So it's just a massive melting pot of really tremendous films. So unfortunately, this year I was not able to go live in person like I was able to a year ago. They were gracious enough to give me access to the virtual library. And I didn't get to watch everything in that library, but I got to watch a good amount of movies. And I just wanted to spotlight some of them here for y'all. These are going to be titles that will be coming out throughout the next 6 months to a year. But this first title we're going to talk about today is already out. You can get it on video on demand. It is The Beast Within, available from Well Go Entertainment. And it is directed by Alexander J. Farrell. Farrell also co-wrote the film with Greer Ellison, and the movie stars Kit Harrington from Game of Thrones fame, Ashley Cummings, newcomer Kaolin Springall, as well as James Cosmo. So what is this about? Well, I'm going to do some minor spoilers here. It's from the United Kingdom. It's kind of a very small, kind of like what I would call like a shoebox picture. Like it kind of takes place in one isolated setting in the woods of Great Britain. And it's a spoiler to say this, but I think if you watch the trailer or really just watch 5 minutes of the movie, you would realize right away that it is a werewolf movie, with the werewolf being a metaphor. And it is about a father, played by Kit Harrington, who every night is led out of his home and brought to an isolated location. And his young daughter, the girl is probably about 10 years old, is confused by this. And she starts seeking out the reasons why her father is dragged out of the home every night, why he's kept in isolation, and why he and his mother, her mother, and her grandfather won't talk about this with her. And furthermore, why at times her seemingly loving, caring, playful, joyful father seems consumed with these fits of rage and anger and violence. So you've got it, folks. It is absolutely the werewolf as a domestic violence metaphor. And it is not the most subtle metaphor that you've ever seen in a movie. Like, it's very much one of the inside of each man there are two wolves type of movie. And it goes out of its way to depict Harrington at times as, like I mentioned before, like a loving, caring dad. But there are also sections of the movie where he's actually at his most frightening when he is filled with anger and rage, and it's directed at his wife and his daughter, and he seems out of control. And you can see, especially his wife, played by Ashley Cummings, who plays Imogen, her trying to placate him and also make excuses for him. Like there's the tension between Imogen and her father, Waylon, played by James Cosmo. And she is very much like trying to make excuses for Kit Harington's character of Noah, and blaming the beast or the werewolf for what all this is. And it movie tries to ask, like, really, what is the root cause? Like, is the werewolf, is that beast that lives inside of him that comes out at night during the full moon, is that the reason why Harrington's character, Harrington's father, is like this? Or is it something that is just a manifestation? Is the werewolf itself just the embodiment of all that rage and all of that anger? Like, why can't Harrington actually control it? And it doesn't get too deep into it. I mean, again, it's really like a very much an on-the-nose metaphor. Now, I would say that Farrell shoots a gorgeous movie. It is a very isolated location. It takes place mostly in a very off-the-beaten-path farmhouse. Like, there are walls up all around it. There's this tremendous sense of isolation. It is, with a very small cast, there are only 7 persons that are listed in the cast. It's the kind of movie that when you watch it, it feels very much like this was filmed with like festivals and video and on demand in mind. I don't know a great way to kind of explain it, but sometimes when you're watching a movie, especially for a festival, you can tell that it was like, we're going to bring this to fest, and when we go to market with it, we know that it's probably not going to get a theatrical release. We're hoping that in the festival market, it will get picked up for distribution by someone like a Well Go or a Shudder or an IFC Midnight. Although even IFC and Shudder now are releasing more and more of their titles into theaters with success for a limited amount of time. But this kind of has that small movie feel to it. And I kind of wonder too, like, I wonder if Harrington is trying to shed his Game of Thrones persona and kind of shed the vestiges of Jon Snow. And if he's trying to do that, it's going to be really difficult for him if he keeps playing roles like this. Number one, the setting is very much like what you would see in the North in Game of Thrones, minus the snow. And he has that kind of heavy accent as well here. The way he plays this role is very reminiscent of Jon Snow at times. And it doesn't help the way they costume him either. There are times where you see him wearing this long woolen cloak that looks very much like something that John Stark would wear. He has a soliloquy, like he's playing with his daughter at one point, and he's very much like doing the king's and queen's speech and talking about his majesty's subjects. The other thing that I think does him no favors, like as much as I love James Cosmo and it's great to see him in things, having him here in a paternal role is the father-in-law. Cosmo also played, the man holding the wall in Game of Thrones and was very much a paternal figure to Harrington's Jon Snow in Game of Thrones. So all of these things are very reminiscent of that role. It's kind of hard to shed that. There is other issue I had with this, and I'm almost hesitant to bring it up because I don't want to denigrate like child performers, but Kellylin Springall, who also appears in Stop Motion, which came out earlier this year. She's a very good, very talented young performer as Willow, but she is tasked with a lot here. The movie takes place almost exclusively through her point of view. There's almost like not a single moment in this picture where she's not on screen. And it is a lot to task of a very, very young performer to carry like a movie that runs like an hour and 40 minutes long, almost an hour and 40 minutes long. Like it is a very, very difficult task to ask this young woman to carry almost this whole movie on her shoulders. And I think it would have benefited more from having multiple points of view and multiple characters that you follow throughout. I think that there could have been more exploration between the characters of Imogen and Noah as a husband and wife, and the relationship there as it relates to his abuse and her minimizing it and how that affected her. Like it's just too much to ask a young woman, to a young 10-year-old or a very young performer, to kind of carry so much of this movie on her shoulders. So that is The Beast Within. Like I mentioned, it is out this week on video on demand. I wouldn't be surprised if we see it on Shudder at some point in the near future. I'm not sure if it's a full rec. I can't say that I would recommend this movie. If you're a werewolf fanatic and you want to see every werewolf movie that's been made, sure, go ahead and check it out. But overall, like this one was a little bit of a tough one to get through. Okay, on a much, much brighter note, I'm going to talk about what might be my favorite movie of the festival. Baby Assassins, Nice Days, following up on Baby Assassins 2, which came out last year in 2023, and which I got to catch live at the Fantasia Film Fest. And I remember, God, it's hard to describe. When you walk into a movie and you have no expectations, you're like, a movie called Baby Assassins, this could go either way. This could be about very young people that are assassins, or it could be about people that are assassinating babies. And as far as I'm concerned, like that's a win-win either way, like as far as movies go. Like I think you can't really lose. And what the Baby Assassins franchise is about, like Nice Days is the third movie in this franchise. It is about two teenage assassins, Mahiro, played by Saori Izawa, and Chisato, played by Akiri Takahashi. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing either of those names. I mean no disrespect. Longtime listeners know I mispronounce the most basic words and have difficulty speaking because I'm a moron. And I apologize right away if I'm mispronouncing. And this is directed by Yugo Sakamoto. Mahiro and Chisato, two teenage female assassins that are also besties. They live together, they work together, they assassinate no-gooders together, they work for this agency, and everything you love about like early John Woo movies, everything you love about John Wick films, everything you love about Gareth Evans and The Raid, all of these things are on display in Baby Assassins. Like these movies have this unbelievable, frantic, kinetic energy that is unlike anything I've seen in American cinema right now. They're just so much fun to watch. I remember walking out of Baby Assassins 2 thinking like it is the absolute most fun I have had in a movie in almost forever. And I'm not the biggest action movie person. So I was absolutely stoked to see this. Now, here is the good thing. You're like, well, Mike, this is the third movie. Like, I haven't seen the other two. You can definitely get your hands on them on Blu-ray, or you can buy them, digital copies of them, or rent digital copies of them. But to be honest, they're all pretty standalone. Like, you can just watch them in any order and not really miss anything. Like, they're not that deep. So for this movie, you have Mahiro and Chisato are on kind of a working vacation. Like, they've been hired to kill an embezzler. And once they kill this embezzler, they're super excited. They're going to go for barbecue. They're going to go to the beach. They're going to do a little shopping. Like, they've earned like a nice little break. Okay. Fortunately for them, this gig has been double booked by they have to compete with a freelancer, and this freelancer is an absolute fucking psychotic. And he is like very, very skilled at his job. It's kind of like Liam Neeson from Taken on steroids, if he is taking steroids, basically, I guess. And he is played by Susaki Ikamatsu. So they confront this assassin, and they get their fucking heads handed to them. Like, they barely get out by the skin of their teeth. They team up with other people from their agency, and the whole goal is to basically, they're told, like, okay, you've now dishonored the agency because you fucked up the job. The embezzler is still alive. You, number one, have to capture him alive. Number two, you have to kill this freelance assassin who's making us look like a bunch of chumps. And then number three, you have to then kill this embezzler. Otherwise, like, the whole thing is going to go to shit. And it becomes this, like, are they going to be able to do this? And there are, like, at least 3 stretches in this movie are like, holy fuck, like, they are going to absolutely kill one of these assassins off. Like, it's the third movie, so you're kind of like one of those, like, all bets could be off at this point. And I've watched, this is the third one I've watched, kind of feel like they could actually kill one of them off at this point. No spoilers to say whether or not they do. I would say go into this movie, and if you love absolute, like, fantastic gunplay, you're going to get everything you want. If you want, like, fantastic, like, martial arts and, like, in close, like, I guess jujitsu fighting. I don't know the actual kind of martial arts they're using here. Somebody who has seen these movies can kind of write in and tell me. But, like, up close combat where you're just using your fist, your opponent's body, and also, like, all of the environment around you, you're going to get everything you want. There's like a 10 to 15 minute long action stretch in the first act of this movie that takes place in a warehouse that is, like, unlike anything I have seen in anything since The Raid. Like, it is that good. It delivers on that much of an impact. Like, it's holy shit that great. And the finale of the movie pays off in a huge way. Like, it builds and builds to a great climax and then really pays off. The other thing that really makes this movie work, like, it's not just the action. Like, that can take it to a certain point, but the chemistry that Izawa and Takahashi have built as Mahiro and Chisato over the course of 3 movies, you cannot help but root for these 2 women and root for their relationship as best friends. And you feel how close-knit these 2 characters are. Like, you just absolutely do not stop rooting for them throughout here. And you really feel like it's one of their birthdays coming up and the other has forgotten to get a present. And all they want to do is, like, book them for a really nice dinner, and you can feel that. And when they go out for, like, a barbecue, and they get a barbecue and beer at one point, the just sheer joy they take from getting, like, really good barbecue, and their delight they take, the passion they take out of that. It is so infectious and so much fun to watch. And it seems really silly, but these characters are just an absolute blast to watch. The movie is shot extremely well. It gives you characters that you're going to fall in love with. It has everything you would want as an action fan. I would imagine this movie would be available video on demand later on this year. It's Baby Assassins, Nice Days. In the meantime, if you have not already, you can definitely rent the first two Baby Assassins movies. The second one is a huge step up over the first one. I would say that for sure. Second one is one of the best action movies I've ever seen. It was one of the best theatrical experiences I've ever had. One of the best festival experiences I've ever had. My only regret is I did not get to see Nice Days in a crowd with a packed theater, because I can only imagine how bananas the crowd would go for certain sequences overall. Like, it's that kind of movie. So I would highly recommend it. It was far and away my favorite movie of this festival. I cannot give it enough thumbs. All right, let's end today's show with one more excellent film. This is a Mexican horror film called Parvulos from director Isaac Esban. And this one has shades of post-apocalyptic horror like The Road, A Quiet Place, maybe a little Lord of the Flies. And it centers around three brothers. And these three brothers are played by Mateo Ortega Casalas, Leonardo Cervantes, and Farad Escalante Carrera. And the two older brothers, one is significantly older. He's a teenager, probably closer to 18 years old. And then there's about an age gap of probably 6 years between he and his next brother. And then maybe 2 years from the middle child to the next one down. And the two older brothers are trying to protect the younger brother from an awful truth. In their basement, they are living in a home. And it is not their home. Something terrible has happened. There's been some sort of apocalyptic event that has been caused by a virus. In their basement, they have a caged up monster that they have to feed. And if they don't feed this monster, terrible things will happen. And in order to feed the monster, they have to go out and they have to hunt animals. At the same time, they have to stay clear of other humans. There are worries that if they run into certain people, there are other humans that are out there that are religious zealots. And these zealots will kidnap, torture, and kill anyone they feel is impure. So they also need to protect themselves from running into other people. So they are trying to remain out of sight and out of mind from anybody. There is no electricity. They need to use every resource they can, and it is becoming increasingly difficult for them to control the younger brother and his impulses. Like, the youngest brother wants to go into the basement and see what's down there, and they don't feel like he's old enough to accept the truth yet. He's not old enough to take part. At one point, the younger brother captures a frog in the beginning of the movie, and he wants to keep it as a pet. And then the oldest brother knows that they have such limited resources that they need to kill the frog in order to cook it and eat it. And when the younger brother discovers that's what's in his food, he has a meltdown, which is understandable. But at the same time, you can see where the older brother is coming from. And I don't want to reveal what it is in the basement, but it takes a different shift in the second act in the movie. And what this movie is often about is the degree that one will go to in order to keep their family together. It's something that we, in all honesty, in some ways, it is thematically very similar to Longlegs, although it's much, much different in terms of its execution, the story beats, the plot. But in terms of its overall theme, it does deal with the lies, the tall tales, the half-truths, and the misdirection that we will tell the people we love in order to try and keep them together and try to keep our families together and try to protect one another. And all three, I mentioned earlier how in The Beast Within, too much of the movie hinged on one young performer's role. We followed her for the whole movie. Here you have three young performers, and they all have different time in the spotlight. So you're never tasked with following one of them for too long. And I think that is to the film's benefit. You also have the introduction at one point of a character, Valera, who is played by Carla Adel. And she stumbles upon their home on Christmas night. She has not seen people in who knows how long. She's a very beautiful young woman. All the more so because it is the first woman that this young man has seen in forever. And she plays upon that. Like, you know, she wants to stay with him. She very much wants a place to crash. She wants the security of having a roof over her head. She's like, look, there is a cure. If we go here, we can find the medicine and take a cure, but it is a risk to leave. Like, it's a very treacherous journey. So she could either like have strength in numbers and leave, or she can stay with them. Doesn't matter as long as she has some safety and security. And she senses like the longing that the older boy has for her. And she, you know, uses that not to manipulate him, but uses her wiles to kind of try to seduce him. And it's a great scene. It's great couple scenes that are in there. And we see how that all plays out. And it's a very alluring movie. It's a very thought-provoking film. It plays out in some really unexpected ways. Some of the imagery is incredible. Like Esben really shoots it's a very low-budget picture, and very much like we said with The Beast Within, it's kind of like a parallel to this movie, and then it's a shoebox movie. It takes place almost completely in one location in this like home that they've discovered in the surrounding woods. But I think they just Esben makes much better use of it. Like, there's some beautiful imagery in this movie that is just like absolutely horrifying as well. Like, there are points where when they find corpses, they put them up around the home as kind of like, or around the exterior of the home in order to ward them off. And like, they're truly horrific looking. There are not like a ton of gore, but some of the gore that is used is pretty gnarly. Like, think Romero style, like Day of the Dead, ripping bodies apart type of gore. Like, some really good shit there. Horror fans will fucking go ape for it. And then there's some great black humor in here as well. Like, it really has everything. And the climax plays out in, as you can expect with a lot of horror movies, not the most upbeat of ways at times. One thing to mention, like, you do find out what triggers this event. Like, what you come to find out why so many persons have been affected, why there are so many monsters. It's like there was a virus, there was a pandemic, and then there was a vaccine. And then the virus mutated. So they developed another vaccine. And then the virus mutated again, and so on and so forth. And eventually the vaccine they came out with caused this pandemic, or caused this mutation in certain creatures to occur and created monsters. And I think some people will see that and think, oh, this movie is anti-vax. This movie is taking that political stance. I don't think that is the case. I definitely had that gut reaction at first, and then took a step back and thought, you know, it's really not making that argument. It's just using it as kind of like a jumping off point as a story beat. It did not really make commentaries at all. It's like, what would be a logical thing that could potentially happen in a horror movie? So I didn't take this as like, this is an anti-vax movie, don't get the jab. So I don't want people to be put off from that. But Parvulos, it's a little bit long. It comes in at like just a hair under 2 hours, like in 1 hour and 59 minutes. It's definitely a bit of a slow burn, But if you stick with this movie, it is super rewarding. I would definitely recommend checking it out. Again, this is one of the films I could easily see Shudder picking up for the holiday season, and being on a lot of best of lists at the end of the year. Hopefully it will get on more eyeballs. All right, listeners. So those are 3 more movies to look out for. We had a half dozen titles for you so far. Hopefully we'll have some more coming up for you in the very near future by the end of this week. I'm really enjoying kind of doing this, a little bit of a stretch from what I normally do. Hopefully you're liking these. And if you do, please, if you haven't already, and I ask this every episode, in every episode I look for some more reviews. If you haven't already, what's keeping you from rating, reviewing, and subscribing? Anywhere you get your podcast, write a few kind words, write a few kind words, leave us 5 stars, and let other people know why you like this show, what it means to you. It goes a long way to, A, helping new people find us, which is kind of the goal of podcasting, and B, making us feel good about ourselves. And really, who doesn't love that dopamine hit and a nice little ego boost? Okay? Number 2, become a patron today. We have a ton of content up on our Patreon page. So go to patreon.com. Don't go to Apple, because come November, if you go to Patreon after November, they're going to hit you with like a 30%. They're going to hit us with a 30% finder's fee, basically, because Apple doesn't have enough money already. I can't see us boosting our rates to kind of make up for that. I'm not going to hit our listeners with it. But go to patreon.com/podandthependulum. Okay? Go there. You got almost 60 hours of content that's up there already. We have episodes on Longlegs. We have episodes on The Killers. We have episodes on Batman 89. We have episodes on I Saw the TV Glow. We have so much bonus content that is up there already, with way more to come. In 2 days from this, on the 15th, we're going to have the first of Ariel's very special series on I Spit on Your Grave. First episode's a banger, where she goes into the whole history of rape revenge movies, and it is a fantastic fucking listen. The only way you're going to get that right now is by going to patreon.com/podandthependulum. Goes a super long way to helping us pay for movies, pay for the hosting fees, the recording fees. Because fortunately, podcasting isn't as cheap as it should be. So if you can become a patron today, that helps us out. You heard at the top of the show, I got a new show coming out. Come this Monday. You can hear kind of the teaser episode. Rebecca McCallum and I, Rebecca from Talking Hitchcock. Rebecca, the foremost expert on Alfred Hitchcock himself, the greatest. We're doing a project on Tobe Hooper's The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So our first episode's going up on August 19th, and it's going to be an introduction as to why she and I love that movie so much. It's called Off the Hook, a Texas Chainsaw Massacre podcast. And what we're going to be doing is breaking down that movie in 74-second chunks of celluloid. We've recorded a bunch of episodes already. We have talked for about 10 hours on that movie, and we are just getting to the hitchhiker entering the van right now. So if you thought we went deep in this show, my God, it's amazing. You are going to know more about, you're going to be able to do your doctoral level thesis on the Texas Chainsaw Massacre by the time we are done with you. So look for that on Spotify, on Apple, anywhere you get your podcast. I am super excited to introduce this podcast to y'all. You can find us at podandthependulum.com. You can find us at Twitter at podandpend, Instagram at podandpendulum, Bluesky at podandpendulum. You can find me at Letterboxd at Mike Chumpchange. Go ahead and look me up there. I post all my movies. I like Letterboxd. It's fun. I like it more than most social media platforms. Movies are fucking awesome. Movies, what do you think? Controversial opinion. Movies, they're good. We like them. I know. Super strong opinion right here. Going on a hard note. So, we'll be back with hopefully another Fantasia episode. Hopefully an Alien Romulus episode. I'm trying to convince a couple co-hosts to jump in for that right now. It's the end of summer, so trying to get folks lined up. I do know we have a recording date lined up for The Fly, So in case we miss a week, that's all right. We got the Fly series coming up after that. And then Terrifier? I believe Terrifier. Who fucking knows? I'm a hot mess, folks, but that's all right. That's why you listen to the show. So we're out of here for now. Have a great week, and we'll be back very, very soon with who knows what. Take care.